Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With your first of two instant analysis podcasts here on Sunday, August 24th. Of course, this first one, we are starting with AEW and NJPW Forbidden Door 2025. We are going to break down everything that happened from the O2 Arena in London, England, and we are going to do it for you on the other side of this quick reminder that here at Getting Over,
it's all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us everywhere at Getting Overcast. On Twitter and Blue Sky, you get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights, all of that good stuff. You can send in questions and comments for the show. We will do our best to read them on the air. And on Twitter, you get to vote in our pre- and post-show polls surrounding premium live events and pay-per-views like AEW Forbidden Door. Those factor into our grade segment at the end of instant analysis episodes like this one. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube, still at Getting Overcast. You there get full-length audio episodes and full-length video interviews. So wherever you can find us, it's the same handle, at Getting Overcast. This is normally the part of an instant analysis where the Silver King would crack open a cold one. However, I am taking this alone. No vintage Chris Vanini today. Because of that, I'm not going to open a craft beer or something delicious and have it get warm while I speak extemporaneously for the better part of an hour. So we're going to save it for WWE Clash in Paris next week. And that is also a good reminder that Tuesday on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast, we will have your WWE Clash in Paris Ultimate Preview. But between now and then, Sunday night, you are getting a second instant analysis podcast for NXT Heatwave 2025. So like I said, a ton of performance-enhancing audio heading its way toward your ear holes over the next week. Plus, let's not waste any further time off the top. Let's get into the AEW and NJPW Forbidden Door instant analysis. We're going to break down every single one of the 13 matches on this card. We're going to give you some match grades at the end. We will give you our final grade for the entire show. Now, there was an episode of Collision taped in Scotland that aired Saturday night. The fact of the matter is nothing too notable happened on the show to build to Forbidden Door in like a serious way. In fact, the only building that was done resulted in like pre-show matches being created. I should say thrown together about 18 hours before the event. So because of that, we're going to have some quick one-liners on those inserted into the breakdown here so as not to waste that much time on it Thursday. This was a minimal set for Forbidden Door to maximize seating. AEW claimed greater sales than WWE Money in the Bank 2 years ago in 2023, which is certainly possible given the setup. But the announced attendance number was like exactly 100 more, so maybe it's a little bit tough to buy. Just some gamesmanship. AEW also announced this twice, which was kind of hysterical. I liked the way the entryway with the side screens and the wide ramp looked. It was better than when it was tight, but this was also done to create a larger ringside area because they used a Hell in a Cell-like cage for the main event. Bryan Danielson was on commentary. He was in for Taz, who chose not to travel due to surgery. And this was still portrayed as a co-promoted show, as you heard me read AEW and NJPW. But as we mentioned on the Ultimate Preview, like 90% of the card was AEW talent. So let's start with the main event. That was not the main event because it was a lights out match. Will Ospreay, Darby Allin, Golden Lovers, and Hiroshi Tanahashi against Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, Young Bucks, and Gabe Kidd in a steel cage match. As I said, the setup was Hell in a Cell without a roof. That created a necessary larger ringside area, just given the number of people in this match. Why AEW didn't run this as Blood and Guts, given it had the same number of people, I'm not exactly sure. Didn't really think about it until I saw everyone in the ring. Ospreay's entrance was special in London. He had a great video package that led into it. AEW also did the whole lights out gimmick before the entrances, I forgot to mention. So going through the spots in this match, that's going to be the best way for us to break it down. Extended sequence with Golden Lovers and the Bucks, moonsaults and sliced bread. They tried to bring thumbtacks in the ring, but the bag was just gummy bears. That led to extended comedy offense. They also did the rebound powerbomb on Omega much later in the match. Darby handcuffed himself to Mox, which got broken like seconds later. Allen took 2 ladder bumps in succession. The Bucks pounced Ospreay into the steel cage, so he bladed as if he took like a barbed wire bat to the head or something. Then he did a handspring into a ladder held by the Bucks, which they bumped for. I thought that was pretty silly. Ospreay tried to use a chair on Mox's neck. Kid prevented it with a pile driver. Claudio launched Darby out of the ring into the cage, clearing a good 6 feet. Really sick spot. Then Darby got tied to a chair with duct tape as Mox literally took a fork and tore apart his ear and earlobe with it. I'm not sure if he put it into a piercing or opened a new hole. Whatever it was, frankly, it was fucking disgusting. Castagnoli then body slammed Allen while he was still in the chair into the ring. Ospreay sacrificed himself for Tanahashi. He ran Mox backwards into a barbed wire table that looked like a science project. Then he hit a picture-perfect moonsault off the top of the cage into a pile of men ringside. Then he did a Styles Clash on Kid, plus a dual V-trigger hidden blade with Omega for a broken fall. Omega followed by taking it to Mox and hitting One Winged Angel for a broken fall. Wheeler Yuta climbed the cage, so Allen dropped him off the side into an announce table. Then he climbed to the top, aiming to squash Mox between 2 sets of double-stacked tables. Instead, Marina Shafir saved Mox, and Kid met Allen on top, where they basically like jumped off together into the tables, barely glancing a couple, taking a hard-ass spill. Despite the planned cushion, they got some of it, but mostly missed it. Ospreay, Omega, and Ibushi then combined to destroy the Bucks with a bevy of finishers, including a hidden blade-assisted One-Winged Angel. This before they cleared the way for the ace Tanahashi to hit high fly flow and get the win. Ospreay then got left alone for a standing ovation because he's presumably getting surgery, taking time off. AEW pulls a WWE. They do the bottom third graphic, seemingly indicating the end of the show, when suddenly Claudio attacked Will just as he exited the ring. Mox hit him with 4 straight paradigm shifts, then wrapped a chair around his neck, while the babyfaces just stood ringside, thumbs up their asses, and he took the, stomp into the chair. His neck got broken, and he was getting stretchered out as the show ended. There may have been a heel or two with weapons, ringside, kendo sticks or something like that. The faces could have run around to the other side, gotten in somehow. So the ops finally run down. They give the babyfaces even greater numbers. No one climbs. And that, again, is how the show ended. So, look, this was indeed a wild-ass match. I mean, you heard some of the shit I just described, right? Ultimately, this suffered from not having a through-line story or really a legitimate reason for happening, which harkens back to Ospreay just randomly making the challenge. Darby and Mox, they were extremely intriguing when they got together because their story is legitimate and it matters. And yes, there were callbacks to prior feuds from years ago, but it felt like an outsized portion of this match was like Golden Lovers against the Young Bucks, which has not been something building recently. The same thing with like Tanahashi and Kid just kind of being there. The only major spot that I had an issue with, a true issue, was the fork, as usual. Look, whether you like it or not, that is not fucking wrestling. Oh, Silver King, but they did shit like that in backyard feds in the 90s. Okay. And this is a national global product. AEW wants to call itself a global product in 2025, man. How are you attracting, kids to your product? And I guess they just don't give a shit about kids. But how can you expect parents to want to let their kids watch this if this is the type of shit you're doing constantly? It's just gore and violence. There's no purpose for it. If I had more time, I'd rant about it longer, but I don't. What happens, though, when Darby and Mox fight one-on-one? Is it literal death? Is that the way that match needs to end? The Darby Gabe jump onto the tables. Just think that through a little bit more. Be a little bit more careful. Don't just throw yourself into the abyss. That's all I'm asking from them on that one, okay? They shouldn't have missed it. I didn't mind the gummy bear stuff because it got out of the way at the beginning. But again, thinking this through logically, if you're having a lights out steel cage match, why are you doing comedy? That gimmick portends seriousness above all else, and they didn't deliver that here. So like I said, there was just so much here that kind of happened. It was a car crash match, yes, but it wasn't like TLC, let's say, in WWE, where that had a level of flow and sequencing. This was just one thing after another, one shock value spot after another. The best part probably was the faces letting Tanahashi get the win out of respect, which I thought was really cool. But even his involvement wasn't treated with any real reverence outside of Ospreay saying it was awesome that he agreed to be on it initially. Oh, they also did like talk Ace down out of doing a ladder spot. That was fun as well. So like, this is a match that, given the talent involved and given the potential, I mean, it had probably a 5-star ceiling, right? If they told a story, if they did all the things we're talking about, but they just didn't. I was at 4.25 stars in an A. Good, entertaining, solid main event. I don't know that I would have main evented this over the actual AEW championship. Now the post-match with Ospreay getting his neck snapped in the chair and 4 paradigm shifts. Holy hell, was this idiotic.
0.0.
0.0, Mr. Blutarski.
That is one big pile of shit.
This was AEW trying to create shock value, WWE style. But again, as is so often the case with Tony Khan's booking, just throwing out logic. You simply cannot have wrestlers climbing into and out of a cage for 30 minutes or however long this match went, only for a group of top-tier babyfaces to stand there, as I said, thumbs up their asses, as the top face in the entire company takes 4 finishers and gets his neck snapped in a chair. Why were they not climbing the cage? Okay, so you're saying there were people stopping them from in front. They had kendo sticks that they were poking them with. Number one, that was tough to tell, and cameras did not do a good job showing us that. But even if they were doing that, you have 2 options. Gang up together because you had the numbers and run at them, jump into the crowd, run around the side of the ring, climb the other portions of it, get into the effing ring. It's like, what is it? Billy Madison, right? Where he's doing the story, he's reading the story of the first grade class. You go out there and you find that fucking dog. In this case, you go out there and you get in the fucking ring. I was going to say effing. No good reason to say that when I've already cursed 6 times here. You get in that damn ring, no matter what it takes if you're a babyface, or you get hurt trying. But they're waiting for the ops to go out there so that instead of having a 4-on-2 advantage, they had a 7-on-2 advantage. That's what it required for them to get in there. Making it even worse was Shafir climbing into the ring for no reason whatsoever on the opposite side. Then again, the ops come out and their faces are like, all right, we got courage now. We got enough people. You know? And by the way, even though they were all out there, they still waited for the cage to lift in order to check on Ospreay. If you're going to do this, okay, if you want to book it this way, send those losers, the Bullet Club War Dogs out there, and give the heels a real numbers advantage. Have them attack the faces from behind, preventing them from even trying to get into the ring. Make it truly impossible for them to get inside. Show them foaming at the mouths, trying and failing to get in there. So freaking angry at the Death Riders and the War Dogs that there's going to be major retribution coming out of this. Instead, we got this bullshit. Making this even stupider is that AEW has told us for a month now that Ospreay is injured and would need neck surgery. So they do a farewell for him at the end, which I thought was a really nice send-off. Really sweet to do that at the end of the show. But if you're doing that, there's no need to write him off as they did with someone else earlier in the show, because we know the guy needs surgery. It's in kayfabe that he's injured and he's going to be going under the knife. So why was this necessary? So now Ospreay's gone. Hangman's champion Swerve is gone. We'll talk about him in a moment. Omega is part-time, kind of. The Ops already vanquished Death Riders by winning the trios titles at All In. Given these guys just took out Ospreay and tried to murder him. Actually, sorry, they won the titles on TV, defended them at All In. But given these guys just took out Ospreay and tried to murder him, is there going to be another contingent of AEW stars trying to get revenge? Or is it just going to be up to Darby again? Like, do you see what I'm saying? How this was a massive logic flaw, both in terms of conception and execution. And again, just no necessity for it happening at all. So it really left a bad taste on my mouth. The finish of the show, more so than the match itself, the fork spot, any of that, because it was so ridiculously flawed. Now let's get to what was the official main event of the show. Hangman Page defending the AEW title against MJF, with the title able to change hands on countout or disqualification. Neither of these guys got special entrances. I thought that was a little odd. MJF continued doing his Ric Flair shtick with the robe. They wasted zero time pushing the stipulation forced 4 days earlier as pretty much the entire match story. MJF bit Hangman's head, so Page did crotch thrusts in his face as retribution. Heat Seeker and Buckshot Lariat were countered into Salt of the Earth. That was great. MJF followed with a pendulum flying cutter. the move of the entire match, and a cradle hammerlock DDT for a 2.9. Then he put the CMLL title and contract in front of the commentary table, moving the timekeeper's table to the other side of the ring. He removed the back pad on a turnbuckle, only to eat a tombstone pile driver ringside. Then Hangman hit Deadeye through that ringside table, dragging MJF into the ring, but stupidly right next to the ropes for a break. MJF escaped the ring, put Page into an open steel chair with a drop toe hold, so of course he bladed. MJF screamed 4 different curses in this match, by the way. He also did a running tombstone, putting Hangman's head directly into the already broken table. He drilled his head into the wood. That was for a 9.5 count. MJF then removed a regular turnbuckle pad, took a header into it, blading for a full crimson mask. They did about 20 pinfall reversals, including like a dozen 1 counts and one that should have been a 3 count. Before Page hit Deadeye, that was a false finish. MJF pulled out his Dynamite Diamond ring, dared Hangman to use it. Page said he wasn't a dumbass, so MJF spit in his face, and then he grabbed the ring and tried to use it like a dumbass. Instead, he spit back at him. MJF got the referee taken out before low-blowing Hangman, hitting Heatseeker for the 1-2-3, even though Page's leg was on the rope between the 1 count and the 2 count. The referee passed out before he could signal for the bell to ring. So Mark Briscoe comes out with a half dozen security stopping him because the match isn't over. After this, MJF saw Page's boot on the rope, so he runs over to remove the boot. The referee not only wakes up at the exact same moment, but apparently he knew everything that happened. He chose to let the match continue despite, in terms of fans, what we saw, the ref had no earthly idea the foot found the rope before his 3 count. So instead, the referee shoves MJF, who was arguing with him. That leads to a sequence where Max mule kicks Page for a false finish. MJF then brought in the title to distract the referee so he could use the contract on Page's head for another false finish. He grabs the ring, which had been thrown out at some point. The referee caught him trying to swing with it, removed it from his hand. So Hangman used MJF's contract on his head, hit Deadeye plus buckshot lariat, and retained the championship. Okay, a lot to talk about here, and frankly, this is our longest breakdown of the entire show, I promise you. Look, AEW never has countouts, and the referees are generally so lenient with time outside the ring, and they have so much discretion with hardcore spots and regulation matches. It was crazy to see the way this was booked, with Hangman bloodied and so many different weapons utilized, when the stipulation was specifically about DQs counting in a title change. It was also strange to go with blood in this way and not keep it a little bit cleaner when a literal lights out match was finishing the show. The broken table spot was awful. That was my least favorite part of the entire match, other than the finish, which we'll talk about in a moment. The wrestling was fantastic when they were actually wrestling. Hangman and MJF, they're excellent one-on-one, and they proved as much here. I'm a big fan of dusty finishes generally. This one was convoluted and overbooked to all hell. If you want to count to 3 and wave off a rung bell, fine. To make the count and not have the bell ring was cheap. For the referee to go from out cold to not only completely conscious, but seeing the foot and knowing when it got on the ropes and therefore that he should throw out the match, that was nonsensical. And then for the referee to twice get involved with Max, to me, that just came across as stupid. The other thing that bothered me was MJF being so ridiculously cheap. Yes, he's a heel. Yes, he's an asshole. But he's also an incredible wrestler. Cheating a couple times is cool. Doing it like 15 times in a row to end the match and none of them working was frankly ridiculous. The referee missed so much cheating that it was funny he somehow saw this tiny little ring on MJF's finger at the end, even though it was all the way back and out of his view. There's a lack of congruence there. The most logical part was the official stopping Briscoe because the match was not completed. I liked that this subverted expectations of him actually being involved in the finish. This was a definite A match, but I just can't go higher than 4.25 stars due to everything that I mentioned. There's no question the crowd absolutely loved most of it, as they did with the lights out steel cage match. But AEW here could have gotten the exact same result by doing much less and simply giving us better booking. Women's Championship, Toni Storm defending against Athena. Toni took out Billy Starks with Storm Zero ringside. Athena rammed her head into the ring post a bunch of times. Real nice tornado DDT into a Tiger Driver by Storm. Athena came back with a terrific series of moves, including a Liger Bomb and inside-out flapjack, moved into a tremendous Koji Clutch style submission. Storm Zero came for a false finish. Billy pulled the ring apron to somewhat trip Tony and disrupt a move on the apron. That allowed Athena to hit O-face guillotine style with Storm's neck over the ropes. Athena sold an injury despite landing the move clean. That gave Starks more time to cheat. Mina Shirakawa then ran down to chase Billy away with a chair. Tony caught an O-face attempt, moving it into a cross-face chicken wing to retain the title via submission. I actually think it may have been a regular chicken wing, not cross-face, but I'd have to check on that. Tremendous match in parts, really strong finish in the final moments. But anyone who listens to this show knows I absolutely hate when match endings come immediately after a pause in action or a run-in like what happened here. It is so cheap. Not cheap was Athena tapping out. That's a legitimate full-on loss. That is nothing like one of those counter-pinning combination sequences that we see so frequently. And that seriously is appreciated by me, not only because Tony needed to beat Athena, given the contract was utilized, but because we got a submission ending to a championship match, which we don't see frequently enough in either company, especially WWE. Grade-wise, I'm borderline A-A. I think I got to knock off a quarter star due to the super late interference, but man, I want to give extra credit for the actual finish. This is going to be a revisit grade on Thursday when we take a second look. For now, I'm going to say 4 stars A-, putting it on par with the TNT title match this evening. At this point, it only makes sense for, I think, Jamie Hayter or Chris Statlander to dethrone Storm unless Megan Bayne is going to get run back. Hayter could be the move unless Stat actually joins Death Riders. But Tony has now beaten Mercedes and Athena, which is interesting given they are both champions in the company and they're both on what they're claiming to be historic title runs. The Unified Championship, Kazuchika Okada against Swerve Strickland. Swerve got his knee taken out by Okada at the end of Collision after the latter interfered in a tag team match. There were some cool chants during this. The crowd really made it feel special. Swerve further sold his knee multiple times throughout, including after a poor jump from the ring apron. Okada took advantage with a ringside tombstone pile driver, with his wrist being held for a rainmaker. Swerve hit house call, grabbed control himself for 3 lariats. Okada twice countered with dropkicks before Swerve countered rainmaker into, I'm not even sure what it's called, but it's one of those like pickup turning body slam type moves. Got to learn that one. Swerve stomp followed with a delayed cover false finish. Swerve helped Okada give him a knee breaker on the top turnbuckle, which was kind of odd to see, before a series of counters led to another house call after Swerve took a dropkick bouncing off the ropes. Then Swerve missed a third house call and 8 rainmaker for the 1-2-3. Immediately after the bell, Okada trapped Swerve's knee between the steel steps and ring post. He banged it with a chair once, which made sense. But then he swung the chair twice more into Swerve's hip and the post, which made no sense unless they also want to sell that he has broken ribs or something. As Prince Nana was then helping Swerve, Wardlow returned looking beefy. He beat up Nana and a few security guards, tiny security guards. Then he hugged Don Callis, and Konosuke Takeshita showed up to make the faction complete. So again, we'll start with the match. Excellent match. Way better than the prior bout on TV. I'd have preferred the post-match attack by Okada be a little bit more logical and better executed, but sometimes beggars can't be choosers. The idea was to write off Swerve with a knee injury because he does need surgery, and I couldn't help but think it would have been more effective for Wardlow to be the one to murk Swerve instead of Okada. What exactly was accomplished by Wardlow beating up Nana? And what was accomplished by Okada beating up Swerve? I would say nothing for either of them. Wardlow didn't look badass doing that. At least if Swerve got to his feet and Wardlow was able to take him out, you would say, holy shit, Wardlow just beat the shit out of a former AEW champion. Even more confusing is why Wardlow is returning alongside Callis, whose faction is way too large with way too many people who lose and lose and lose. It's getting to like end of run NWO levels of ridiculous size. If there was any action or any faction, that didn't need another heavy, it was this one. But we grade on the match. And this was the best match of the night at the time it ended, ahead of the 3-part main event. And I think it probably, at the end of the night, was my second favorite match on the entire show. They clearly did not go all out, whether due to Swerve's health or a desire not to overshadow other stuff. But these guys, they have a 5-star match in them if they ever get the opportunity. 4.25 stars A, just really great. I really enjoyed this. IWGP Heavyweight Championship, Zack Sabre Jr. defending against Nigel McGuinness. Daniel Garcia backstage at Collision said he was disappointed to not be in the match, but he wanted to be a good friend to Nigel, who he expected to show Zack he was the better wrestler. The only way this booking would have been worse was Sabre losing the title. That was my thought coming in. Sabre answered Max Caster's challenge and beat him in 2 minutes and 20 seconds on Collision. Then he held his title in Nigel's face, which was the entirety of the build for this. Anthony Bowens also attacked Caster in the ring for about 10 seconds. He got jeers until Billy Gunn came out and they went chest to chest. And look, it's just kind of odd that Gunn is protecting Caster for basically no reason when they split. The double turn here, it's technically worked with Bowens and Caster. The cheers and boos have flipped, but to what end? Just put them together at this rate. Like, what are we doing? Just make it more interesting. Nigel hugged Johnny Saint before this actual match. Garcia was ringside as promised with a towel around his neck, which a lot of people assumed meant he was going to throw it in. And I got to be honest, I thought it was a legitimate possibility because why else would he have that? You know, there was a nice blindside lariat of Sabre at one point. They traded European uppercuts for 3 minutes. Tower of London from Nigel for a rope break was for me the best spot and the only true exciting moment of the entire match, especially because it ended moments later with an extended pinning combination exchange where the referee pulled his arm up on a 3 count and then gave Sabre the 1-2-3 to retain the title as expected. Garcia had a face-to-face with Sabre at one point. He looked disappointed in the finish. They shook hands with Sabre, showing Nigel respect afterward. Cameras completely missed what was supposed to be a fake out of some kind, with Garcia like getting into the ring, removing his jacket as if he was going to attack McGinnis, but he just hugged him. There was no heat in this match. And again, no threat of anything actually happening. With a focus on technical wrestling and way too many moments involving Garcia, man, this just did not hit for me at all. Others will probably slobber all over this as a dream match. That's 3.25 stars and a B, and I honestly think I'm being a little bit generous there. TBS Championship Mercedes Moné defended against Alex Windsor, Persephone, and Bozilla. We got basic information on the latter competitors on Collision. Moné obviously got the only unique entrance with 8 of her 9 titles held by dudes dressed up as the King's Guard. There's a term in life and business, paralysis by analysis, meaning overthinking something to the point you might make the wrong decision or miss an opportunity. Parts of this match were the wrestling equivalent of like doing a bit too much when something simpler would have been better. It was clunky. A great example was a monkey flip into a powerbomb that got delayed 30 seconds so other women could get involved. It ruined the move. Persephone nearly broke her neck twice, once on a failed tope suicida and then on a bear hug suplex by Bozilla. The one spot where the complication paid off was a double stack Tower of Doom. Windsor got a spotlight run as the hometown talent. That included a brief double sharpshooter. Bozilla crushed the other challengers with a double second rope moonsault. Moné countered a Liger bomb into a poison rana that did not land. Then the referee picked up her arm on what should have been a 3 count. Persephone caught Bozilla on the ropes with a great razor's edge. And then the clunky finish came with Mercedes trying to pin someone who wasn't hurt, only to counter Persephone's razor's edge into a curl up, get the 1-2-3, and escape with the title. I realized as this transpired that the match would have been far more interesting if a different title was on the line and it actually changed hands, because you had the multi-woman aspect and you could have avoided Moné taking the fall as she lost the title. You could even build an angle where like Windsor was responsible for blocking Moné from the fall, so their feud could have had some fire to it and actually continued. But evaluating it as booked, it was good. Parts were very good. It tried to be more than it was. 3.75 stars, B+. Bozilla was the standout here. I'm surprised WWE hadn't signed her a while ago. I think her dad is a scout for them, and she's clearly talented, so that's kind of weird. We had the tag team championships on the line. Hurt Syndicate defending against FTR and Brodito. This was the mid-show match. Only 2 legal men at a time, which always bothers me when, of course, we know triple threat rules are far better. The match was plodding until Brody King finally tagged in. Fans were chanting to see him. They really wanted him in there. At that point, it was King and Bobby Lashley.
Oh, we got 2 big meaty men bumping meat tonight.
They indeed bumped meat, but interestingly, King sold more for Shelton Benjamin than he did Lashley. King and Cash Wheeler wound up hitting Shatter Machine on Shelton before Brody hit a tope suicida on Cash into Syndicate ringside. Bandito then carried Dax Harwood for a Spanish-style crossbody into everyone else. Lashley hit a big spear on King when suddenly 2 dudes, it ended up being 3 dudes, in New Japan tracksuits with black masks attacked Syndicate using weapons going down the ramp. Brody took an unprotected chair shot straight to the head and kicked out. The dudes removed their masks. They proved to be Ricochet and GOA. We'll talk more about them later because they were on the pre-show. But they took Syndicate out of this match. The finish was completely botched. Dax landed a superplex on Brody, and Bandito landed a frog splash on Dax. Okay, so far so good. Then Bandito missed his monkey flip moonsault and Cash got into the ring way too early. There was basically a kick out of the fall without Cash breaking it up. Then the referee counts 1, 2, 3 immediately after, with Cash just hanging out there, not trying to break it up again, and Brody just laying there, not exactly stopping him. Even worse, Bandito wasn't legal. King was, so neither fall should have counted. Brodito winning was a massive surprise given everything seemed to be building toward Edge and Christian against FTR for the titles in Toronto. I thought the match itself was running along incredibly well, on its way to being my favorite on the first half of the show, until the booking and the final sequence ruined everything. There were rumors out there about Syndicate being specific about the only teams they would lose to. So, okay, you book a triple threat so they don't have to take the fall directly. That's fine. Apparently that wasn't good enough. They didn't even want to be in the ringside area as the fall was occurring. Patently ridiculous. Clearly the Ricochet GOA deal, it's related to MJF because they worked together randomly on TV this past Dynamite. This should result in a full Syndicate face turn, which is fine since it's how fans have been treating them anyway. But the problem is that outside of an MJF agreement, they really had no reason to do this. Why are they picking a fight with guys who are big and strong and hurt people? And really, why is Ricochet, who just started his first ever group, why is he doing the bidding of another heel? That already puts him in a lesser role. I could legitimately create an equally long pros and cons list for this match. That's how much good and bad happened. I'm going to say 3.5 stars and a B because it was fun. But man, oh man, that ending was a total deflation. Adam Copeland and Christian Cage fought Killswitch and Kip Sabian. This opened the show. Great reaction for the face side. Really cool to see them together. Extremely plotting match that was placed in this spot due to name recognition and Copeland getting an entrance pop. That would have been better saved, I think, for the middle of the show. Sabian bladed for no real reason at all. The heels allowed Copeland to do a doomsday spear with Sabian on Killswitch's shoulders in a ridiculous spot. The gimmick here was Cage not being allowed to tag until late. Edge and Christian, they should have gotten a fall on a double impaler DDT, but there had been a blind tag. Copeland speared Luchasaurus, still called Killswitch, off the apron, then combined with Cage for a pop-up spear on Sabian to get the win. The right winners, an okay match story, but man, this was a boring ass start to the show outside of the crowd just cheering the fact that Copeland and Christian were together. Christian refused to hug at the end. He did a handshake after the bell. I'm giving this 2.75 stars and a C+, the plus being for the great finishing sequence. The match itself was a C. I mean, it just really was not that good at all. TNT Championship, Kyle Fletcher defending against Hiromu Takahashi. On Collision, Takahashi and Skyflight beat Don Callis' family to open the show. Fletcher stood on the stage after the match, held up his title. That was the build. This was second on the show. Obviously a much better match. Bell to bell. Fletcher hit a great spinning back suplex off the ropes and a Liger bomb. Takahashi had a great counter on the apron into a spike DDT, followed by a sliding sunset flip powerbomb ringside and a flip over Canadian destroyer back inside. Fletcher double reversed for a jumping tombstone pile driver and a 2.9 count, then won a bit later with his brainbuster finisher. Hiromu's kickouts made this match, and he really starred over the second half. Fletcher obviously is great bell to bell. The only reason I'm at 4 stars A- instead of a full A is there was zero drama or story. There was never a moment where we're even swerved to potentially believe a surprise title change might happen, even for a second. And if you can't get me excited in a storyline, you're not getting an A or better in a match. So that wraps up the main card. In terms of the pre-show, there were 4 matches. I think all of them were built on Collision and a little bit on Dynamite as well. The Ops beat Bullet Club War Dogs to retain their trios titles. I wrote that line before even watching the bout. These dudes got a title match stemming from random involvement Wednesday in a promo segment on Collision led by Kid, who gave a really thin explanation about why they came in. For some reason, 2 of the War Dogs spoke as if they had just smoked 2 packs of cigarettes. It could not have been less interesting. But Kid, individually, he's a damn good promo. And again, the titles were on the line here for no reason. They had done nothing to earn the opportunity. Triangle of Madness and Megan Bayne beat Willow Nightingale, Queen Aminata, Chris Statlander, and Harley Cameron. Bayne pinned Cameron. I wrote that line before watching the bout. And yes, you heard that right. Willow and Stat were not only on the same team, but Stat was on the babyface side. Why? We'll get to that in a second. But this did continue some of the women's division storylines in this amalgamated low card. Even though this happened on the pre-show, there was a random Aminata Thekla brawl during the main card, so AEW could do a return of Jamie Hayter making the save. Good pop in her home country, but also like ridiculous adding another number to this just group of low card women. AEW hasn't done a blood and guts match yet this year. It's usually in the books by July. So if they go with the women for the first time, then all of them together might make some sense. Now, this match happened after Bane beat a debuting Isla Dawn on Collision. Dawn didn't get an All Elite graphic, so I'm not going to gripe about her being defeated in her debut, but it was ridiculous for a legitimate talent wrestling at home to get less than 5 minutes. Treated her like a jobber for no reason. Also preceding this on Collision, and more directly leading to it, was Willow and Aminata beating Julia Hart and Sky Blue. Post-match attack with Bane and Penelope Ford. Failed Harley save. Then Stat ran down because Cameron had helped her last week. There was not even a moment in this match where Willow looked at Stat sideways. Nothing to sell their relationship issues or awkwardness or really anything like that. Ricochet and GOA beat Jet Speed and Michael Oku in a pre-show match. I wrote that before the bout, but I was a little bit less sure about the winner here. Entertaining due to the legitimate talents in the ring. Ricochet pinned Oku, who took a few crazy bumps in the match, one of which nearly broke his neck. Nasty. GOA, they have something to them for sure. They have for years, but they're better now than they ever have been. Hopefully they get built into legitimate challengers and eventual tag team champions. Easily and unsurprisingly the best match on the pre-show. This happened after GOA beat Grizzled Young Veterans. Remember them? On Collision. They haven't been on AEW TV since May. They've now wrestled 9 matches on that brand since debuting 16 months ago. Paragon, El Desperado, and Yuya Yamura, I want to say, beat Crew and Don Callis family. I wrote that line before watching the bout. Tomohiro Ishii helped stop a post-match attack, but Roderick Strong again refused to celebrate with him. This really had zero reason to be on the show, at all. Just thrown together by Callis and Okada, randomly interfering in a Bucks win over Paragon on Collision. Swerve saved to end the show. I realized here how incongruent it was to be booking the Bucks as down on their luck losers with zero power, yet they continue to work with Death Riders and Callis, the top 2 heel factions in AEW. So a big woof on that. So that wraps up AEW, NJPW, Forbidden Door, a breakdown of the entire show. In terms of grades, let's start with our pre-show expectation grades. The Silver King on our Ultimate Preview, I thought it was going to be a 90 out of 100 and A-. All of you listeners are getting overheads. You had the opportunity to vote on Twitter. 33% in the A range, 49% B+ to B, 12% B- to C+, 6% C or lower. That's an 88.6 out of 100, rounds up to an 89. So I was at an A-. All of you were at a B+ coming into the show. In terms of our final grades, how we all believe that AEW and NJPW Forbidden Door delivered, let's start with all of your grades on Twitter, again, at Getting Overcast. There are 35 minutes left in our poll as we tape this, so it's certainly possible the grade slightly changes. But right here, I have 27% A+ to A, 33% A- to B+, 24% B to B-, 16% C+ or lower. That averages out to an 87.3 out of 100, a B+. So all of you, couple points lower than your initial grade, but still at a B+. And I genuinely agree with this being lower than expectation, falling below my expectation coming into the match. Let me start with something positive. Something I did appreciate about this card is that all of AEW's titles were on the line. It's easier to do that, yeah, when you have a 13-match card and half of your challengers are shrugs or people who don't actually go out and deserve an opportunity. But nevertheless, it is important to get all your titles on the line in a major show. And they had the IWGP Heavyweight Championship on as well. So, there were a lot of championships on this show. There were also a lot of multi-person matches. The entire pre-show just felt like shoving people onto the card. And ultimately, when it came to the final 4 matches, which is really where you need to judge AEW on, they were all quality wrestling, but one after another, there was a frustration. The logic of the Swerve Okada post-match attack, certainly the logic of what happened to Ospreay at the end of that match, the overbooking of MJF and Paige. Tony and Athena was much cleaner. It just wasn't my favorite the way they did it immediately after the Starks and Shirakawa part of it. It was just like one thing after another was inhibiting this for me from getting to an A- or an A. And really, I don't really give expectation grades for individual matches going into the show, but I would say at least half, if not more, of the matches I thought would be better than they were. And I also believe were not as good as some of what I'm seeing online immediately after the show, the way people are praising them. So yeah, others may grade this show higher. I'm not there at all. And you have to grade the show in terms of what AEW, the bar AEW has set for its programs, the matches that are booked and what they should deliver. And then again, not just the match quality. It's not all about just how many moves are executed and how smooth are they and all that. It's the storytelling in the middle of these matches. It's the finishes and how they make sense. The logic behind some of this stuff is done. And for me, that was really, really lacking. It's the wrestling that saved this from being a lower grade. Because I'll tell you, if the matches weren't as good, then this is a B show. But the matches were really good, many of them. So I'm at an 88 out of 100, a B plus. A quality show. If you did not watch it, I would not tell you to go out there and spend $50 for the replay at all. I would tell you to figure out a way to watch wrestling and find it. But, was it an enjoyable afternoon on a Sunday before football season? Yeah, it was. And I'm glad I got to watch AEW and JPW Forbidden Door. I'm also glad I got to get this show out as quickly as I possibly could because Silver King is turning around and watching NXT Heatwave. And later Sunday night, we will have your NXT Heatwave instant analysis. So if you're a first-time listener, be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to performance-enhancing audio. On the way out, I should actually remind you off the top, because I forgot to do this when we opened the show, that here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. We're a free show. We're an ad-free show. We would greatly appreciate your support. Again, you can do that at buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news analysis, highlights, and all of that good stuff. And you can also vote in our pre and post show polls on Twitter. And then on YouTube, not only do you get full-length audio episodes, you get full-length video interviews as well. Again, all over social media at Getting Overcast. And lastly, on the way out,
it's all about the 5.
I need to remind you, it's all about the 5. So please head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on this show. Greatly appreciate you lending Silver King your ear holes for this AEW and JPW Forbidden Door instant analysis. Again, we will have an NXT Heatwave instant analysis Sunday night as soon as that show goes off the air. Then next week, we have your WWE Clash in Paris Ultimate Preview on Tuesday, an NXT and AEW show on Thursday, and your WWE Clash in Paris instant analysis on Sunday. That wraps it up for now. We'll be back in a few hours. This is the Silver King signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.